of Thieves yet?
I have not.
On Netflix.
No, I saw you did a show about it. I want to check it
It's
out.
a prequel to Army of the Dead, but there's a point where this guy's like a safecracker.
Yeah.
And he's like an amateur guy, but he's doing YouTube videos about safes and things. Yeah, and he's like,
safes.
blah, 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 be sure to like, share, subscribe. And I'm like, oh, I feel like a meme.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. There it is.
No doubt.
Oh! But yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Sounds like we got volume there. Cool.
Luke. There we go.
Hey, what's up,
Hey,
dude?
everybody. What's going on?
All right, gang. If anybody's out front and wants to get in on the question and answer situation in here, we're about to get started. So just throwing that out there. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, guys. And everybody on Facebook watching later.
Oh, it's happening?
Yeah, later. Later, I'm gonna post this later.
All right, cool. Yeah.
I'll edit out all the dumb stuff that I say.
Yeah. We're going to be doing a lot of editing.
All right. Well, cool. I guess we're going to get started then, guys. Guys, we all came here today. We got a show later, but we're also here to get our book signed by R.C. Housen. It's not every day that you have a friend who writes a book, but it's also not every day that your friend writes a good book. Like, the book was really good.
Oh, thank you.
And yes, absolutely, man. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it kind of reminded me, one day I was doing stand-up comedy, and I had a good friend come to see me, and he was really nervous that I was going to be terrible, and he was going to be embarrassed for me. He wanted me to be good so bad. He said I did a good job. You're my friend. I've known you for 20 years, you know, and I was like, man, I hope this book's good, and it totally was. It was really good. The characters were super likable. The story was not predictable, and I was sucked in. And at first, being that I know you and we're from the same town, you know, I started trying to pay attention to things in the story. I'm like, is this supposed to be headhunters? Or they, you know, and I'm thinking of different things downtown and stuff, and it was really fun. And but then I quit trying to analyze, and I just got sucked into the story, and I really I was blown away. It was really good. So good work. If I read a good review that you got on it earlier today, and they were right about everything. And there was some really good lines that he quoted in that review that you posted on Facebook, and he's right. It was some really cool stuff. So good job, and I'm sure all of you guys agree that he did a great job if you've read the book. So. I wrote some questions down. I tried not to write generic questions. So what's your process? Tell me all about it. But I got a little of that in here. But I'll say Esmeralda, she was a cool character. Cleo was a cool character. Blaylock was a really cool character. Like all these characters were really neat. So, but this is your first try at a book?
Yeah.
Or do you have any shorts that you've done?
I wrote one short story that I sent out to some publishers, and it got rejected in short order, and it should have been. But I knew it was going to be, and I wanted to send it out because I wanted to get kind of bloodied up, because I knew that that's part of what you do as an author, and so I kind of fast-tracked that, and I wanted to go ahead and just get told that this isn't good enough, and that way it would feel real, feel tangible, and then I would go out and start trying to write some better stuff. And this one was supposed to be a short story, and I started writing one night, and I just kind of didn't have any idea of where it was going, and just sat in my garage. I drove back from Houston that day, and so I drank too many energy drinks, and there's no way I could have fallen asleep, so I just sat in my garage and just started writing, and I laid down like about 4,000, 5,000 words over the course of like 5 hours, which is like, that's a fucking lot of words. And I saw that there was a submission call for stories that I thought this story would fit in well with, and they capped it at 10,000 words. And so I wrote it as a 10,000 word short story, but then I got there to the end and realized how truncated it was, and how it had grown legs, and it had kind of lots of legs, and it started crawling around, and I was like, this could be so much more. But I knew that I didn't have the skills to do a long form narrative at that point, because there is a certain skill set to that. There is a certain level of mechanics to story you have to understand. So I stopped writing the story, and I started studying. And I went out and I bought several different books on writing craft. I bought one's called Saves the Cat, Writes a Novel. I bought another one called Story Genius. I bought some that were written specifically by horror authors that were just different theses on the art of horror and the craft of writing a horror story. Of course, I read On Writing by Stephen King, and I spent about 4 months going through these books and doing the exercises in these books and breaking out a notebook and analyzing these characters and thinking, what's their motivation? What do they think they want versus what do they really want, or what do they need? And that's kind of how you build a narrative with a plot that's realistic, and it anchors the events with the characters. Because I wanted to avoid, they call it and then storytelling, and if you've ever had a child tell you a story, it's like that. It's like where they go and then, and it's all these things that happen. They're always like trying to top the thing before that with something more outrageous, but none of it really flows into a narrative, or really has any bearing to who this character is. And so I spent like 4 months on that, just really doing stuff that wasn't really particularly interesting or fun. And I learned a lot about plot beats, narratives, like how to form a 3-act story, which it's something that I definitely did that with this. It's obvious because I actually labeled the 3 different acts, which I thought was kind of cool, because that was a whole other level of creativity, as in you make up mini titles for the different acts in the book. And I found myself doing things like I took my kids to see Frozen 2 in the theater, and I'm sitting there watching it going, this is the Dark Night of the Soul plot beat, or like, this is the Storming the Castle plot beat. There's these 14 plot beats that you usually hit in a story, and I found myself analyzing everything I was watching, and so that kind of helped me to write a 72,000 word novel on my first attempt, and it be okay.
Yeah. No, okay, nothing. It's good, man.
Yeah.
And you already answered that question.
Yeah.
I was like, when did you decide this was happening? Yeah. It's when you went out and bought those books.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. We live in a time. I decided I'm going to start doing YouTube stuff, and I watched a bunch of how to what the format is, and I could see it like you did the same thing, but it's on a different level.
Yeah.
And studying the craft of writing a novel is awesome. It's really fascinating to me. Do you read a lot? Also, actually, before we get to that, did COVID lockdown and stuff help with this, or was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, give you plenty of time to do that.
Yeah, I was deep into it right when the pandemic started, and it was like, oh shit, this is a real pandemic. I was like right at the point where I was getting ready to start writing the novel, because that was at the end of that 4 months. And my sister-in-law, I came over from Poland like right before that, and she was packing her stuff to get ready to go to the airport, and I was like, I don't think you're going home. This is a global pandemic. This shit's locked down. You're not going home.
Yeah.
And so she ended up staying there with us, and so her and my wife, they like to watch costume movies, like the Sense and Sensibility stuff, and that stuff's cool. It is, but it's not really my cup of tea. And so I found myself in the garage more, and so it helped me to go out there and work more. In retrospect, that was such a cool experience to have. Them all there, because it kind of reminded me of like when you hear about how Mary Shelley, when she wrote Frankenstein or the modern Prometheus, it was like they were on like a summer retreat, like her and her fiance and some other loose associates, and they decided they were going to do a contest to write a scary story, and she's the only one that actually finished writing the story, and she ended up writing arguably one of the first science fiction novels, and then as it got made into a movie, it became a horror icon. And so I thought that was just kind of a cool thing to experience something like that. So yeah, the pandemic definitely played a huge role in it, because I couldn't leave the house or not to do anything fun. So
that's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of people, some comic book creators that I know of and stuff that turn the lemons into lemonade. You're like, you know what?
Yeah.
Got time to do stuff? Let's do it. I think that's cool. Do you read a lot?
I do. I read a lot of like print media, a lot of books. I have my oldest daughter's from my first marriage, and it's a 4-hour round trip to go pick her up, and I go pick her up every other weekend. And that's kind of what led to this. I started doing that like 8 years ago, and I was doing audiobooks to kill the time. And I was like knocking down audiobooks, and I would just realize how much I loved stories and how much I'd always loved reading. And so I knew that I wanted to one day pursue this. I just knew that I wasn't quite ready to do it yet as a person, and I needed to grow a bit as a person. So.
Who do you think's the most influential author on you?
For me,
For you.
definitely Laird Barron's work. Like if nobody's read that stuff, I definitely recommend his stuff. It's really good. Yeah.
I could tell you from personal experience, once I started writing a lot of songs and things, I started looking at everything with a different glasses on, to where I'm noticing, instead of just enjoying a song, now I dissect every single song. So you said Frozen. Are you doing this with books too, or like everything you watch or consume story wise, you're like dissecting everything and you?
Yeah, definitely. When I'm reading a book, if it's something that I like, I would step back and I'm like, what is it about this I like? What did they do specifically that grabbed me? And what can I learn from that? You never want to copy anybody or anything like that, or take like copy their style. But there's definitely a give and a take in creative endeavors like that. And there's definitely, I pull influences from lots of different authors. And like I said, it's very analytical. I look at what is it particularly that grabbed me or made me. A lot of times it's what unsettled me in the story, because I do like that feeling, the sense of being unsettled, kind of disoriented a bit. I obviously like feeling nervous because I keep putting myself in situations like this. Like not really somebody who likes a lot of attention or speaking in front of a group of people with a microphone, but so yeah, I look at those kind of things that like what emotional responses the story made me have and how they did that. And sometimes I find some very subtle ways that there's an author named Kathy Koja. She wrote a book called Decipher in the early 90s. It was kind of a contemporary of the original Ring story, and in that it definitely dealt with VHS tapes and not so much found footage, but a creepy VHS tape. That's about the extent of the similarities. But her stuff was really subtle in the way that she knew how to apply pressure to other emotions to elicit fear. Like, I didn't realize that what she was, it wasn't like, a scary man in a mask is chasing you. It was like she did other things that were very subtle that made me feel very, very unsettled, or very it resonated with me. And so I found myself thinking about the story days after I finished it. And so that,
That was after I finished the book. I laid in bed and was thinking about the meaning of life for like a good 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Because it kind of polishes on that. I don't want to no spoilers at this interview, but yeah, at the end I was like, that's really makes you look at things differently if you really think about it. It kind of gave a grander view on on life and whatnot, and the short time that we are here to do things.
That was definitely intentional, and that was also something that I took away from the story. I can say that the experience of writing it, I learned a lot about myself and who I am and what I value and how I view our meaning, our existence, and I definitely wanted, that was definitely a theme that I wanted in that story the entire time.
Yeah, it was sneaky though, because you didn't see it coming, and it was cool. Well, I'm going to jump to a question later because you just almost hit it. Do you wish you would have started writing sooner, or are you glad that you have all of these years of experience and experiencing life to throw into the story?
I wish I had started writing a little sooner. I don't wish I had tried to publish any of that, because it would have been horrible and extremely immature and very bad. But I think it would have been good to just for to build that muscle, because there's definitely a level of endurance mentally you have to develop in order to sit there and concentrate, especially in the world we live in now, where we're just distracted by so much. Like, we multitask and everything. The bandwidth in our minds is split, so to sit and be able to focus on a singular task in that way you have to develop that, so I wish I had worked on that a bit earlier. But as far as like trying to publish something that I would be comfortable with people reading, this was definitely the right time for that.
Yeah. So. Did you do a lot of research for things I know I talked to you before, and you say, write what you know is what they say, and but I was just curious if you had to go like, okay, I need to look up this town, the geography here, if you're looking up this or that, or things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to.
write what I knew in the first act in the physical setting, and I did like this weird mosaic of Austin, the downtown area of Austin, like circa 1993. I took some liberties when I mentioned things about the skyline changing, because we all know that didn't happen for like half a decade later, but, you know, whatever. I'm making shit up here, so I went ahead and went with that. So I wanted that to be something that I knew, and so I was writing about different views from different venues down there, different things I remember about them. And the Atomic Lunch Bar, which that's the name of the bar at the beginning of the book, was like a bit of a mashup of a bunch of different venues. Like I remember it's part of it's Elysium, part of it's Old Emos, definitely part of it was Liberty Lunch. That's why I pulled the lunch part. And then I don't know if anybody remembers the Atomic Cafe.
Yeah. It was Elysium before.
Yeah. And so I kind of matched those two together with a name because they were so different in proximity and size and everything. So I wanted that part to be the write what you know, because I wanted that to anchor you into the story, as to make it feel real and tangible in a way that when I start throwing supernatural things at you, that you would still suspend your disbelief long enough. The other stuff I didn't write what I knew, because I didn't want to write. They call it Gary Stu, Mary Sue storytelling. I think it's where your character is just like this idealized version of yourself, where the way that they deal with every confrontation is they're just the best at everything, and I wanted to avoid that. So I wanted to write characters that weren't like me, and so I wanted to write a female character. I wanted to test my empathy on that and try and write something from somebody who experienced things from a different perspective than me. Somebody who experiences physical confrontations different than me. They experience social situations a little bit different, and fear a little bit different. And so I have two daughters, and so I kind of thought about like them a lot and how they might react to things that were scary to them, and so I wanted to expand a little bit on that, and that was the part that I kind of took a bit of a chance on.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Would you ever make Cosmovorous into a movie? Would you ever want that to happen? Because I was like,
of course.
I was listening to this and I was like, dude, this is an awesome.
Yeah,
this will be
of
an
course.
awesome movie.
Of course, I'd want that. I would have to, and then I could just do this all day long. Then I could change it to I write it day and night. So, yeah.
Do you visualize things in a movie like way, or when you're?
Oh yeah. Like that. I mean, one of the things you mentioned was you liked how I describe how things look, and I'm really good at describing like visuals and things of that nature, and that's because I do kind of picture these things in a cinematic way. Because I do read a lot, but you grow up, you watch TV, you watch movies, so you that's how you relate to story, is how you picture it in your head. Because it's like the most powerful processor, we know of the human mind. You can.
I was picturing a Linda Hamilton as Blaylock.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, the short cropped hair. Yeah.
Let's see here. Oh, did the story keep growing? You kind of answered some of these. Did the story? I know you started as a short story and then started getting bigger. But did you know how you wanted it to end? And then also, did you ever have any like roadblocks to where you're like stuck and you didn't know how to tell this story the right way, and maybe you had to walk away for a little bit and come back? Or did this just all come out no problem? Or did you have to do any rewrites to make it better or make sense?
Yeah, so I can tell everybody that this book, this is literally the best I can do. I put that much effort into it. So this is definitely, I did not half-ass this. Everything you read was written 3 times before it ever went to an editor. Like I wrote it, I call it taking a run at it. Like I knew kind of where I wanted it to go, and so I take a run at it, and I'm like, that's not the right way. So I back it up and take another run at it, and then usually maybe around the 3rd time, what I wrote was how I wanted to get there, because I knew how I wanted it to end. I knew like the end. I wrote. Like almost a year before I wrote the book, so I had to figure out how to get from there to there. I had the first act, and I had the very end of the 3rd act, and I needed to fill all that in. So yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, and like you said, the imagery and analogies were like really good in this. You know what I mean? Like all over the place. Where it's like, yeah, I can't think of one example right now. You know what I mean?
But I can't either.
But But it was fantastic.
Cool.
I was really impressed with that part of. Do you have any secrets for finding good analogies or anything? Or did you keep your thesaurus handy all the time? You're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I need another word for that, or like,
Yeah, I definitely used a thesaurus a lot, and I was very selective in the words, and that's probably why it took so long, because I knew I wanted to put together words that conveyed a certain feeling, not just describe the action, but I wanted the words to convey a certain feeling, describe what was going on, and I also wanted like a bit of a lyrical feel to it. I wanted it to have music to it when you read it. So I was always like conscious of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
yeah, it was like poetry.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was
I do get a little purple with the prose and some of it I kill and some of it I keep. So yeah.
Did you have a mentor or anybody that you were like, hey, I was talking about it earlier. I spent some time trying to do a little stand-up comedy and stuff, and then I found myself hanging out with different comedians and discussing how to craft jokes and things like that. Did you ever? Were you just like barreled down in your garage, or did you actually talk to other people who are writers, or did you have any kind of mentor like that?
No, I don't really have a lot of contact with other writers. It's kind of weird to reach out. At least it's weird for me to reach out to other writers. I know that some people do that and they have correspondence with them. I probably will do that moving forward now that I've actually wrote something, not just some Yahoo rattling off an email asking questions. So no, I wouldn't say I had a mentor. I have a wife who probably was sick of hearing my ideas about the story. I definitely bounced a lot off her. When I wrote the first story, I sent it to Larry, and he said he liked parts of it. He liked the part with the horses. That was kind of gross. But he was like, you need to work on narrative and plots, and that was really great advice, because that's what I did, and that's why I was able to do a long form of fiction like so early out. Because especially in horror, a lot of people in their first efforts are going to do a short story or they're going to do a novella, just because it is. The genre tends to lend to shorter stories anyway. So I think this was like the length, like as long as I would have been comfortable carrying this story. Because if you carry it too long, you get comfortable in that world and it quits being scary. Yeah.
Well, speaking of that world, it took like 40 years to write your first book.
Yeah.
When is the second one? When are we going to get another one? Are you hooked, or is this a thing you just wanted to try, or is this a thing like, no, I'm hooked on writing now, I'm going to keep cranking them?
Yeah, I want to keep doing this. I am about 12,000 words into something else that's in a different story or a different world than this. I have 2 other things that I wrote that are in this world. One's kind of a prequel, one's kind of a sequel.
I call it the Hausen verse.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I have other ideas, and I'm kind of messing around with it and writing some other stuff. I just haven't really laid into that quite yet, because I wanted to give this the attention it needed, and I'm still focusing on moving this a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking about mentors. If you could mentor yourself, if you could tell a younger Chris Hausen, how to make a book better, or give any advice to yourself, what would you do, and what would you do differently?
Oh God, damn! I got all night for that.
It's almost the last question, so
Yeah,
we're down to the end of the question.
Last question. I would like the advice I give my younger self is just to try and in all situations try and be kind to everyone, and including yourself. Because I know I talk about this often, that the things that I look back on and I regret are times when I wasn't as kind to others or as kind to myself as I should have been. So that's the life advice I would give. As far as the writing advice, I just there's like so much of that. I would just say like the writings and the rewriting. That's the truth of it. I mean, I think M. Night Shyamalan made a joke that in his first draft, the line was, "I see deceased persons," or something like that. And the "I see dead people" was the second attempt. You know what I mean? So yeah, you got to rewrite it. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Great. Well, guys, Cosmovorous is the book. If you haven't read it, check it out. If you don't want to get a solid copy, you can get it on Kindle. It's available. R.C. Housen's social media. You can come scan this thing, and you can like his Facebook fan page and support him, and you'll be known. You'll be in the loop for stuff in the future. So thanks, guys, everybody, and come get your book signed.
Yeah.
Woo!
Sure.
Thank you, and thank you for letting me be a part of this, man.
Thanks so much for doing it, and thank you guys all for showing up. This means so much to me. So really, it's really cool. Thanks, man. Thanks, dude. It was a great job, brother.